Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the second day of movement meditations. Got some really nice feedback from yesterday's lesson. People enjoying the little exploration to do with the collarbones. So yesterday we looked at a way of approaching looking up. And today I want to look at a way of approaching looking down. So what I would like you to do is just to find a comfortable position to sit in. And when you're ready, just close your eyes, just kind of come back to yourself. Bring your senses back from what they've been engaged in. Come back to your body. And then when I was looking through images for this particular lesson, what kind of struck me was there's so many images of people studying or reading or doing whatever task it is that's involving their attention, that they're kind of looking down and they're hunched over. And in some way this is something that we kind of we get quite good at, having this relatively hunched position. So in the Feldenkrais method, being a little bit radical, it in some way one of the things that it wants to do is actually help us get better at the things that we do already. So this movement of bending the spine in this way and hunching over, is there a way that we could make that a more comfortable experience? We get better at it, so that it's more using the whole of our body and making less strain on certain parts. So the first thing I'd like you to do is just find a comfortable position and make sure your both feet are on the floor. Hi, Nikki. So as both feet are on the floor, what I'd like you to do is just very gently begin to lift up the front of your right foot away from the floor. As you lift the front of your foot, more of the weight of your foot goes down into your heel, and then you place your foot back down on the ground. So just do that movement a couple of times, lifting the right foot away from the floor, the front of the right foot, and then bringing the front of the right foot back down towards the floor. And as you do that movement, can you notice if there's any effect, any causal effect in the way that you're sitting, maybe in the hip itself, in the hip joint? Can you feel that if there's any movement kind of further up the body as you just lift the front of your right foot away from the floor? Good. So it's difficult because I can't see you guys, so I can't judge the instructions. So I'm just going to kind of give hints along the way. So now what I'd like you to do is as you begin to lift your right foot away from the floor, I'd like you to gently roll your pelvis backwards. Gently roll the pelvis backwards. And in fact, we should have done a check first. If you just actually take a break from that to begin with, and just look down in your chair, however you're sitting, just look down, notice kind of what the range is in looking down, how comfortable it feels, whether you can really kind of, get your head towards looking down, and how that feels along the whole length of the spine. Good. So once you've done that, come back up and just begin to lift the right foot again. And as you lift the right foot, you're going to gently roll the pelvis backwards. Roll it backwards and then roll it forwards. And you'll notice that as you roll the pelvis backwards and you lift the right foot, you very gently, like maybe even a minuscule amount, move your weight over to the other side of the body. So that more of the weight goes down into the left side of the pelvis as you lift the right foot. Just try that a few times. See what you notice. This could also be a driving lesson. So this is the accelerator foot. Good. All right, let that go. Take a little rest. And then when you're ready, begin to lift the left foot away from the floor. Very slowly, very gently. As you lift the left foot away from the floor, notice if there's any effect further up the body in the pelvis, in the hip joint, in the lower back. And see if you can allow your pelvis to roll very gently backwards as you lift the front of the left foot away from the floor. So the left heel stays on the floor the whole time. And notice again is as you take your left foot away from the floor and you roll your pelvis very gently backwards, is there a slight tendency? Is there a minute movement of the body over to the right side? Good. Just do it a couple of times. Okay. Now what I'd like you to do is begin to look down. Begin to look down at your left foot as you lift it away from the floor. And then come back to a more normal neutral position as you put the foot back down. And then as you lift the foot, look at it. So this is looking at the left foot now, lifting the left foot. And noticing as you lift the left foot and you look at it, what's happening with the weight in your pelvis. So this is a great exercise if you do a lot of sitting down all day. Good. And then go back to the right side. So rest the left foot, go back to the right side, begin to lift the right foot away from the floor and just look down towards the right foot as you lift it away, allowing your pelvis to roll backwards slightly. So I can't really show you what I'm doing with my feet. So it's a bit of a different demonstration to normal. Yesterday I was able to show you with my shoulders. So I can't really show you what's happening with my feet, but I'm doing the movement at the same time. Just lifting my right foot away from the floor, letting the right side of my pelvis roll backwards. And at the same time, I'm just letting my head come down and look towards my right toes. Good. Take a rest. And then with the right foot, staying on the right foot, just gently, very, very gently lift the heel and then lift the front of the foot. So you're going to alternate between, so if the foot's on the floor, you're going to lift the front of the foot and then you're going to lift the heel. And just do it really slowly. Take your time. Don't rush it. If you can, keep your eyes closed. And just see if you can make this movement really light. So as you're lifting the heel away and you're lifting then the front of the foot, there's some sense of lightness. Good. All right. And then just swap over, let your right foot rest. Do the same thing with your left foot. So you lift the front of the foot first, and then you lift the heel. And you just do that a number of times, lifting the front of the foot, lifting the heel, and see if there's any way that that can just become a really light, comfortable, easy movement. Good. And then could you do both feet at the same time? Both feet lifting the heels, and then the heels coming down, both feet lifting the toes. Seeing if you can make that really light coordinating your 2 feet together. And if you keep your eyes closed and you do it in a sensitive, delicate way, then you'll be able to feel more and you'll be able to coordinate it more. If you're pushing really hard and using a lot of effort to do this, you'll become less sensitive as you do it. And that will mean that you're less able to notice differences and create change. So within the Feldenkrais method, there's this principle that the more sensitive that you can become, the more you're able to notice. And it's that noticing ability between this and that, and that change and that change, that gives the nervous system the requisite things it needs to learn and to change. Okay, so now can you swap over and can you do them at a different time? So the left heel lifts as the right front of the foot lifts. So this is a bit of a challenge. The left heel and the right front of the foot, and then the right heel and the left front of the foot. And just see again if you can make this a really light, comfortable movement. And maybe it takes a moment to coordinate this. Can you speed it up? Can you make it quite a light movement where both the feet are pretty free? Okay. And then what I'd like you to do is just follow that on and very gently begin to lift the whole of the left foot away from the floor. Lift the whole of the left foot away from the floor. And notice as you lift the whole of the left foot, what happens in your pelvis, what happens with your weight. And just do it a couple of times. Lifting the whole of the left foot away from the floor and putting it back down. See if you can let your pelvis roll backwards as you do that. And at the same time, take your eyes down and look towards your foot. Just do that a couple of times, lifting the whole of the left foot, noticing how there's a movement across the bottom of the pelvis, more onto the right side as you lift the left foot. So as you roll backwards, there's a rolling backwards, but there's also a movement, kind of like a direction going over to the right side as you lift the left foot. And that's normal. It's to do with the support of the body. Good. And then try the same thing with the right side. Just lift the right foot away. Allow the pelvis to roll backwards and let the head look down. Maybe you could look at the knee instead of the foot. Let the head look at the knee. And allow your pelvis to roll very gently backwards to the left. Good. Keep it nice and light. So you notice as you're doing this movement that the pelvis is rolling backwards, and as you're taking your head down, then obviously your spine is curving, is bending. Good. All right, take a little rest. So as you sit there now and you feel, maybe you can let your feet just rest on the floor, but feel for yourself in your pelvis, like, how are you sitting? How comfortable is it? And then just check, go back to what we did at the beginning. Just look down, just begin to look down and see if there's any change in your ability to look down. And it might seem like quite a strange thing that working on your feet and lifting the feet away from the floor would have some effect in your ability to look down. But that's kind of one of those magic things about this system, this method, is that, involved in looking down is all of our body. When you can incorporate more of the body into the process of looking down can become easier. Okay. So the next thing I'd like to do is if you just lift your left foot away from the floor, Let your pelvis roll backwards. In fact, let's just roll the pelvis backwards in sitting. So have both feet on the floor. Very gently, just let your pelvis roll backwards and look down towards your knees, in the middle of both knees, and then come back up. Just do that a couple of times, just so you get familiar with it. Letting the pelvis roll backwards, letting the head come down and look between the knees. Do it very slowly, very slowly. The slower you can do it, the more uniform the rolling backwards will be on either side of the pelvis. So we all have a bit of, asymmetry in the body, to do with maybe a slight rotation in the pelvis, or, a slight curve in the spine, or a slight side bending in the spine. And those things are really natural and part of our life. But in this kind of movement of the pelvis backwards, actually, you've got this sort of potential for symmetry or for uniform movement, because both sides of the pelvis are sitting on something equal. And as you roll it backwards, that can actually pull the spine in a very kind of so I can't remember, it's like a specific lesson, but Moshe Feldenkrais talks about how things like this, lessons like this, can really help to correct scoliosis and spinal twists. Okay, so now what I'd like you to do is roll your pelvis backwards, have your weight slightly to the right, and bring your left foot up into the air. Okay, and then you're going to imagine that there's a line. So you're going to look down at your left knee. Imagine that there's a string between your forehead and your left knee, and then you're going to lift your knee towards your head, but take your head backwards more, and then bring them down together at the same rate. So you imagine that there's a string between your head and your knee, and you keep that string exactly the same length, so that as you lift the knee, you take the head backwards, and as you take the head forwards, the knee goes down. Yeah, so the string is not changing in length. Just do it a couple of times. You could really allow yourself, because your right foot's on the floor, you could really allow yourself to rock backwards. Good. Just do it a couple more times. Imagining that there's a string between your knee and your head. Good, and then let your left foot rest. Take a moment. Again, now lift the right foot, let your pelvis roll backwards to the left, and lift the right knee slightly away, slightly higher. Imagine that there's a string from the forehead to the knee, and that string is going to stay exactly the same length. As you lift the knee more, take the head backwards, and then bring the knee down, take the head forwards. And just do that movement a number of times, feeling that you can roll all the way back on the right side of the pelvis, because your left side of your pelvis and your left foot is stable. So that string is staying exactly the same length, exactly the same length. Okay, let's do it a couple more times. Really feel that your knee lifts away from the floor, your foot lifts quite high. As you keep that string the same length, the head can come backwards. You can feel a rounding in your spine. And then as you come forwards, the head follows the knee. Okay, then take a rest. Very gently, just begin to lift the front of the feet together, and then the heels together. So one after the other, the front of the feet, keeping the heels on the floor, and then the front of the feet are on the floor and you lift the heels. And just see how that is now. How light can you make that movement? Good. Okay, so now comes the tricky bit. So what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to lift both feet away from the floor. Both feet lifting away from the floor. As you lift both feet away from the floor, can you roll your pelvis very slightly backwards to help you do that? Good. And then at the same time, as you lift both feet away from the floor, I want you to look down, take your head in the direction of your knees. So you're rolling your pelvis backwards, lifting both feet away from the floor, taking your head down and looking between your knees. Good. And then just swap over and do it on one side, taking one foot away and seeing if you can take your head towards your knee this time. So this is not keeping the string straight. This is bringing the left knee up, letting your body roll backwards and seeing if you can take your forehead towards your left knee. Okay, just do that a couple of times. Good. And then let that rest, let that foot rest. And then begin to do the same thing with the right foot. Taking the right foot away from the floor, taking the knee upwards into the air, and at the same time, taking the head downwards towards the knee, but allowing your pelvis to really roll backwards as you do it. It's very comfortable. Okay. Do it a couple more times. And then I'd like you to vary it. So one time I'd like you to do the left side, take the head towards the left knee. The next time, take the head towards the right knee. And just make it very comfortable, very easy. Like as easy as it was to just lift the front of the foot or the heel away from the floor. That light. And notice what you're doing on your pelvis in order to facilitate this movement. It's quite a, it's quite a big movement. So in order to do it, you're going to have to actually reposition your body each time. Good. All right. And bring your legs down, bring your feet down. Touch your feet on the floor. And then just look down again. Change, take a second, take a moment, and then just look down and see how your looking down is. Feel if you, as you look down, is there some sense that the whole spine is creating that ability? So it's not just one area like the head looking down, it's the whole of the spine changing its shape, allowing the head to come down and look very comfortably. So you can feel that, each part of the spine does its part of the work, So not one part doing all of the work and the other part staying still, but each part is really kind of, allowing that movement of bending. Good. Okay. So just take a moment, just close your eyes. And, hopefully that there was some difference in your ability to look down. But more so, if you close your eyes now and you kind of allow your attention to just sort of circulate in yourself and just see how you're feeling. I often use the analogy or contrast like what humans do in relation to what the animal kingdom does. And I used to go for a walk every lunchtime when I used to work in an office. And every lunchtime, I would go for a walk along the canal and I would see various birds during that process. And one of the things that I noticed really, really regularly is that they would be there cleaning their wings, cleaning their feathers, and they would spend time on it every day. Like they call it preening, but it's like the basically, like looking after themselves. Really, kind of, how do I make my wings more functional because I need them for flying? As humans, we don't really think about that. We think that once we've kind of got walking and we're on our way and we've, got a job and, it's like that's our those are the standards that we have for ourselves. We don't necessarily have a standard of like optimum movement and being physically capable. So these just little lessons, 20-minute lessons, are a way of, I don't know, maintenance, daily maintenance maybe. And you feel that you're actually looking after yourself as you're learning about what you do, how well you do it, doing it in a way to see if you can find improvements. And it's just a kind of, a self-care mechanism. So hopefully you find that useful. I am going to continue, I think, with looking this week. So we did looking up yesterday, looking down today, and maybe just check again. Take your head down and see how looking down is. Has it improved? Has it changed? What do you feel? And if you want to write in the comments to let me know, that would be great. And I think tomorrow we will do some rotation and looking to the sides. So I hope you enjoyed it. If you want to access previous lessons, you can do so in my Facebook group, www.facebook.com/groups/thoughtful movements. If you would like to contribute for these lessons, there's a link in the description to my PayPal account. Obviously, I'm very appreciative of people who want to contribute. Yeah, please like and share it. If you found some benefit from doing this yourself, maybe some of your friends would as well. So share it out into the internet, and hopefully lots of people can benefit. Okay. So thank you for watching. I really appreciate it. Drop me a comment just to let me know what you thought. And I'll see you tomorrow at 11. Okay, take care. Bye.